So, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Self-Development Tactics podcast that is not really self-development anymore at this point. But anyway, we're gonna model something in Blender today. I thought about really quickly whether I should do it in Rhino since it might be a bit faster, also definitely more accurate and whatever, but I am then in the end, so the base model is gonna be something, and then the final model is also gonna be something. So yeah, I do have a bit of inspiration, and the thing is that the construction basically, so the framework of it should be already something kind of nice. I don't necessarily want it to be like, just something, because in the end this is like really form giving and quite essential for what the whole thing is going to look like in the end. Would actually also be great in Houdini, to be honest. Would also be interesting to use volumes in Blender. I don't really know if there are that many great possibilities yet, but yeah. Let's start with this big cube, and I'm gonna subdivide it rather randomly, and let's make something great out of it. Let me see. We might actually also do this by creating vertex groups and then adding modifiers. Might be really cool. Might also be really shitty. I don't know. This is kind of the problem about this. Or we might just build it by hand. This is the question now. I think I'm gonna use just this thing there. I guess it should be fine. But we could also, this maybe could be interesting. Select random faces, and then we are extruding them along normals or individual faces probably, but inside would also be rather interesting, because outside it's kind of boring because it's always the same. What about along normals? That's the same. Am I dumb, or is it really the same? Yeah, it's really the same. So we might actually also do it like this. I mean, a city full of these objects would also be quite cool, to be honest. Like, definitely a bit of variation there. Might actually also be a great technique to then subdivide it and then extrude it again. Let's actually do this. Select random. And having the same amount every time, I think, makes sense. Where's my mouse, or am I? Maybe something like this. I think in the end it's gonna be the exact same thing that I've been doing the past few times, having one base model and then copying it onto the same model for multiple times and then seeing what it does. It is quite cool, and it is quite interesting though, and definitely quite astonishing those results that this can have, even though it is just a really simple process that, I mean, of course you could loop it in Houdini, for example, or maybe even in Blender. I don't really know if there is. There maybe is. There maybe indeed is. We could actually also check that out. Do I like this? Not really, but we're gonna see. We're gonna see if there is something like this in the geometry node editor. I mean, we can extrude. We can extrude the mesh like this. And then there is indeed a selection, so random value should do the trick there. Yes. Float, integer, vector, boolean. I think the float is fine, I guess. I don't really know. 10? Does this make a difference? Not really, to be honest. No, this does not. But we could do that and then have a random value offsetting. Yeah, and then making a bunch of shit out of it. Nice. Okay, that's interesting. So between 0 and 1. Okay, what if we are setting it to an integer? The thing is, I don't... okay. I mean, this is interesting. Don't want to say that it is good, but it is interesting. Might actually also not be the case. It might be the case that I was mistaken, or that, that it just, works in a different way as I think it does. So that this is not a random selection, apparently. Can this be the case? Well, it is a random selection, is it? Yes, it is. But I do not want it to be that high, at least not. I mean, this has something, I'm not gonna lie. This has something. I mean, especially when you're then using it to create something different out of it, having this as one set of multiple things. This could definitely be quite the cool thing. But this would be one of a few elements, I think. One of them maybe even being just some flat, some rather flat planes with a bit of a thickness. But I'm seeing some niceness there. The offset is doing this shit, and this is also not necessarily doing what I want to have. So, what if we set this to 0 first of all? There might be some interesting bits happening. Let's actually set it to 0. I think this was quite okay. Maybe in the end we're gonna get rid of the very top part. Maybe, because might not be cool by using multiple one of these. Having like a thick thing in the middle doesn't look that nice. We could also bool it, but I think it is okay at this time. Let's group it and go back here, and then we're having this as a group. I think you should be seeing that. Yes, you do. And now we are copying it a few times, which is basically looping it in the end. And we're seeing what is happening. Might actually be the case that it is always doing the same. Is it always doing the same? Let's see. No. So there is a thick one there. And let's see if it gets even thicker. No, it does not get thicker. Something else extrudes there. So we're gonna do it again. And now we're having this thing. The question now is, are we... Yes, we are extruding the last bit of it. So in the end, we're having geometry and we're doing the same thing again. What would be interesting is maybe subdividing it in the end. This might be interesting, or having a dual, maybe having a dual mesh. No, we're not going to do a dual mesh. Keep boundaries. We're definitely not going to do a dual mesh, but we might be doing subdivision surface, subdivide mesh to this level, and then doing it, going back to this thing, and then hoping that it is not going to crash. Side note, going into the temp folder on, at least on Windows, I don't know what it is like on Mac, but on Windows you can indeed have some autosaves there. Most often it is working, at least, I mean, for me. Maybe there are some settings that you have to do until, or so that this is happening. Don't really know, but should be fine. As fine as actually also this is. Is there something else that we could be doing? I mean, there are quite a few bits that are quite big and rather uninteresting. The thing is, this is probably gonna be better once we use this again and add the same object to it, and maybe even something else. We're gonna have to see whether this looks cool or if it doesn't. But I think up to this point, it is rather a simple way to maybe get some sci-fi type of shit rather quickly. I mean, yeah, I mean, there are actually some really interesting bits there, having those platforms, things that are somewhat tilted and whatever. We might actually do it again and hope that it's not crashing. Maybe I should not do that. Maybe I should not do that. Well, I'm also not gonna do it then. Don't think that it is too good of an idea. Of course, subdividing it to such a big degree is rather necessary. I think that I'm gonna duplicate this cube just in case, because so that we're having this node setup always available. But for the main one, we're gonna apply it so that there is not always gonna be some recalculations and stuff, and that everything is in one place and good to go. What would be interesting is to see how much of a subdivision we're having going on here. And apparently it is quite something. Or it isn't. It's actually quite fine. Maybe in the middle there is a bit of junk, let's call it like this. But that should be fine. I mean, we could also just use this one. Let me actually save it for once. Let's just call it test and whatever. You don't see it anyways. Save it. Yeah, everything's still fine. And then we're gonna add another geometry node there. We're gonna distribute points on faces. These are a few points. Definitely a few points. And we are maybe just thinking if this is gonna work then. Yeah, let's try. Instance 2 points. No, that's the wrong one. I'm actually always taking the wrong one quite. Instance on points apparently is the right one, and then we're gonna use a collection info and hit it into there, and we're gonna use this collection, and we're praying that it's not gonna burst. I could have actually reduced the density, because normally the density is really not that big, but apparently I might have to copy it there. But I still wonder why it's having so many issues with this model, because at least on the very outside of the whole mesh, it's actually not that detailed. But we are gonna see. We are indeed gonna see. So we're having this cube, we're moving it to another collection that we're gonna just call collection 2. And for this one, we're probably also getting rid of this thing here. Right. And the other one, we could definitely also move somewhere else, so that in the end it's not in the render, which can be quite annoying. Which can be really quite annoying. There we go. Collection 2, and let's see what is happening. If we are finding something good here. Maybe not, maybe we do. Maybe everything is gonna crash. Maybe it's not a good day. We might actually also remesh and or at least decimate the original model, or at least the one that we are copying, because it might just be too much. And very often it's also quite unnecessary, especially when all of the detail is inside of this thing, and or just maybe in spaces that we are just not seeing. And then why have those issues, those performance issues, when you're not even getting anything out of it? It would be rather unnecessary, really, really quite unnecessary. And as you can see, we are having a few issues, but this is basically the setup that that I've been using for quite a bit now, and which is also really, really interesting, and can create quite great shapes, and very detailed shapes, especially when you're then using the normal output from the distribute points on face, and you're putting it into the instance on points. It just scales things rather randomly, and it is quite cool. You could also use a texture to scale things differently, but having this bit of variation there just really makes it incredibly interesting sometimes. And then maybe adding a few other elements, like very thin lines, maybe even some bigger things that just create shapes and make this original shape that we already having there even more interesting by having more subdivisions and or more edges, more depth in the end, is quite good. But yeah, I don't really know if this is gonna work out there, and therefore I think that I'm gonna end the episode right there. You get the point, you get the idea.